Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio. Your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Long Game here on USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and I am your host for this exciting episode. This is geared towards business owners around the world, so I hope that you will get some value and some nuggets to take away from this. Feel free to put some comments into the platform, wherever it is that you're watching, if you're able, and please make them positive. We are a positive station here. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to our YouTube channels. We are streaming on many different platforms, I think up to 12 right now, and then through our distributors later. But we'd really like to have you on YouTube, where they give us real information. And that's USA Global TV and Radio and Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. So today's topic is really important. It's why business owners do not control their distribution. And I have to raise my hand that I am someone who has gone through this as well. And part of it looks like the fact that we rely on third parties in a number of ways. And I'm going to actually get into that. But the core issue is that we as business owners confuse having an audience, having customers, having clients with ownership. And we can measure our success, especially if we're on social media, by followers, by our platform visibility, and also if we are a brick and mortar, by foot traffic or by referrals instead of access and control. So as a result, we build businesses that are very vulnerable to disruption. So if you've ever had any thoughts about this or you've been concerned about it, we're going to take a look at it today. So for business owners who are on third-party platforms like social media, I know for myself that I have done business with a number of companies that I found out about through social media. So through Instagram, for example, I have actually hired different companies to do things or bought products and services. And these companies are strictly on social media. So that is the only way that you can access them to get information about how to go to their website. So when we are over reliant on third-party platforms, we rely on social media. It could be online marketplaces. It can even be the booking platforms. Think about, are you using a booking tool for people to reserve time with you? What happens if that goes down? What happens if they take your information? Or it's even physical location. So if we are brick and mortar and we are in a leased space, or maybe it's a shared environment, we don't control that. So that can actually have an impact on us as well, because again, it's out of our control. So I want to talk a little bit about visibility versus control. If you are brick and mortar and you have a storefront and that storefront is really busy, you interpret certain information from that. Or let's say you have a very strong social media presence, or you have really high rankings in terms of your reviews. All of these things can create a false sense of stability and even a false sense of security. So being visible doesn't mean that you are consistently reaching your customers or your clients. It doesn't mean that people are proactively buying from you and then coming back. And that's something that I want to talk about a little bit later in the program, is creating that awareness, that need, and then you provide the solution, and then the person actually makes a decision, and then they come back. They repeat that purchase, that behavior. So think about social media influencers, for example. We can talk about Instagram or TikTok or YouTube even. We can find platforms where people have a huge number of followers, let's say accounts on TikTok, and it looks like they're really doing something special. And we're thinking to ourselves, they must be making a fortune. They've got all this visibility. And after interviewing many, many influencers in the course of my 10,000 or more interviews that I've done, what I found was most of the people, I would say all the people I interviewed who were social media influencers, were not making any money, even though they had huge numbers and huge followers. Now, of course, we're not talking about Joe Rogan or Mr. Beast or any of those people who actually have sustainable and income from what it is that they're doing. But we as business owners can feel the same way when we have a brick and mortar location. So we may see people coming in and we see a lot of activity, but people aren't actually buying anything. And something I want you to consider, if you are a people watcher, which I am, maybe you like to go into malls, shopping centers, and you sit down, you actually watch people and what they're doing. And you can see some of the big designers, they might even have a line outside to get into their store. But look at how many people are walking out with purchases. That number is a lot less. So even though there's a lot of foot traffic, that doesn't mean that we have stability. So I want us to think about the fact that being visible doesn't mean that we are reaching our customers consistently. We have to actually tap into something where we're bringing value. Now, I want to be very clear. There are certain things, times in life that things happen, and we're not able to control what's going on because our clients have things going on in their life and they're not able to be actively involved or engaged in whatever it is that we do. So if you have a business where you are relying on a small number or a certain number of clients, your business can be turned upside down at any point because those clients may leave. So you have to create a model where you have people repeatedly coming back to you. So focusing again on the distribution piece, thinking about referrals. Many service-based businesses rely heavily on word of mouth. And I know of companies where it's strictly referral based. There is no marketing, there's no advertising budget. So it's strictly word of mouth. And without capturing customer information and building a direct database on that, those relationships are not owned or scalable. And if you think about being in corporate, I know when I was, we use salesforce.com and we input all the information about our clients into salesforce.com. Well, the parent company owns that information. We do not own that information. In most cases, we would sign a non-disclosure agreement that we're not able to call on those clients. So if you spend a good chunk of your career calling on certain clients and you don't own that data, when you go to leave, maybe you want to be a consultant, which happens many times. People leave corporate and they go out on their own. You're not able to use that data. So you can't rely on that last however number of years that you spent, because that data belongs to someone else. So that's what we're talking about when it comes to distribution. For example, something that happened in the last, I want to say 6 months, but it could be 9 months. Facebook now takes down videos after 30 days. So if your business is doing a lot of advertising, videos, and marketing on Facebook, Facebook takes it down after 30 days. So essentially, you don't own Meta, you don't own Facebook, you don't own Instagram. So your marketing is lost after the 30 days. So it's something to be aware of, because many times we feel like These platforms are there and we don't have to pay a subscription fee, for example, but they really own it. And I'll give another example. We're on YouTube right now and Facebook, of course, many platforms, but we're on 2 YouTube channels. Well, when we first started out, we actually had a TV show host here, and she was doing a special, and she was bringing on a woman who had lived with the gorillas. I think it was. She lived with the gorillas, and there was a documentary done about it. So she was in Africa, as was our show host, and I was also co-hosting. So the guest was going over to the studio of our team member who was in Africa, and they were going to do the show together. Well, she couldn't do the show for some reason. And so the host and myself did the show. And so what happened was the host pulled up a documentary from NBC about this same woman who's her friend, who lives near her, who was coming to her house, who lived with the gorillas or the baboons, I apologize, whichever it was. And we ran that clip. And what happened was YouTube shut the show down right away and took us off for a week because it was a copyright violation. Now, I wasn't aware that the co-host was going to be doing this, and I'm not faulting her, but we didn't know. But the point is, we didn't own that content. And so if we were relying only on YouTube, they took us out of business for a week. And so there's a lot to be learned about that. So we can't be just one place because we can be shut down at any time. And also, if you are doing marketing, are you backing up your video marketing so that you have the content? Also, when you're hiring people to produce content for you, are you getting the original files? Sometimes we work with other entities. Maybe we hire people and they give us the final product, but they don't give us all of the pieces of the product, which could be the audio file, the video, the graphics. And so if that person disappears or that platform goes down, we don't have anything. We just have whatever the final product was. And as an example, I do a lot of book marketing. And before my book comes out, it'll say coming soon, or you'll be able to purchase it on Amazon. Well, after it's already out, then that file is no longer relevant. So it has to be updated. So I make sure that I have all of those parts of the file, because otherwise that video is going to be irrelevant and people are going to watch it and say, why does it still say this if it's available? Okay, the next part of the distribution process is sometimes there's a lack of strategic thinking. Sometimes we operate in a knee-jerk reaction, and emotions come in play in this point. Sometimes we get so excited about what we're doing with our business that we don't actually think strategically. We don't think in the long game, which is what this show is about. It's about the long game. So our daily processes, our daily tasks, our daily operations, they take place over long-term infrastructure. So as a business owner, we have to expect that things are going to come up that are out of our control. We might have employees come and go, or consultants come and go, contractors. We might lose clients. We might lose business. There's a war going on. There's economic factors. And so we have to be ready for the long game, which you may say to yourself, well, how are we supposed to prepare for these things? Well, we have to have a plan B and a plan C and a plan D. And I'll give an example of this. When I was in corporate, I had decided at one point that I was going to retire. And I was going to retire because I had health issues. I have ulcerative colitis, and I was traveling around the world, and I was really sick, and it was getting more and more difficult to do this. So I was working with a coach who is now one of our team members, Mariska Dupria, and she's in Australia. And we worked together to put together my resignation letter and then what I was going to do when I left corporate. Well, who knew there was a pandemic coming? I actually retired March 6, 2020 from my corporate job. But in addition to having a plan B, I also had a plan C and a plan D. So it's almost like if you've ever been in event planning, or let's say a wedding, for example, we can all relate to that. And we anticipate that everything's going to be smooth sailing. It's going to be a beautiful day. But what happens when it's not a beautiful day? Are you going to have your guests standing in the pouring rain or in the snow or whatever the situation may be? That's not ideal. And people will have memories about that. If you are bringing in a band or you're bringing in people from, catering, what happens if they can't make it? There always has to be a backup plan. And sometimes we don't think about this, but in the long game, we need to have options. Now, you may say to yourself, well, in the event of a wedding, for example, I can't afford to hire a band and then hire a DJ. And then, no, of course not. But what is the next step that you would do if the unbelievable happens? And of course, I'll give another example. You know, I love my examples. I was in corporate. I was calling on this company and I had been calling on them for a while. And I had an appointment with one of the C-level executives. And I was flying in for the meeting. And my boss was also flying in for the meeting. And so what ended up happening was my boss's flight was canceled. And I was there at the meeting with this C-level executive from a Fortune 500 company. And I was prepared. I already knew what role my boss was going to play. Now, in some cases, people would be very anxious about this. Well, my boss, he's a higher level than I am. I looked at it as I am there as a conduit to bring a solution to what this prospect's needs are. And so I took the focus off of the fact that my boss wasn't there, and I put the focus on that I was laser focused on helping this executive with whatever his business issues were. And another example is I had another client I was calling on, and one of my executives from my company and I went to this meeting, and we had spent a lot of time calling on other people within the organization. And now we were actually going to have our day in the sun, so to speak, where we were sharing the solution. And we had never met with this executive before, but we met with a number of his people, probably over 9 months. And so we had the PowerPoint, the 60 slide PowerPoint that everybody loves. And what ended up happening was the executive said, I'm not interested in this solution. I have something else I want to work on. And my boss and I were kind of like deer in the headlights because our team spent all of this time working on this. But it didn't matter because what happened was it shifted in terms of what that executive needed to hear. So sometimes when we are planning for the long game, we have to realize, I shouldn't say sometimes, I would say all the time, we've got to be prepared that things are going to change. We can't be married to something so heavily and heavily invested in it that we can't be light on our feet, that we can't pivot, that we can't shift, we can't be open, because life is always bringing us opportunities. And so in the long game, we've got to be open to receiving this as information. Now, another thing I want to talk about is avoidance of owned channels, things that we actually control. So in the long game, we have information that we have at our fingertips that we can use, but sometimes we avoid this. One of these things is email lists. Some people have newsletters, and in all candor, I no longer send out newsletters because for the television network, it became so clunky. And if I didn't put all the TV shows in there, people were offended. So I stopped doing it. But for many people, the newsletter is the way that they are really touching the people who are following them. Now, obviously, here with the television network, we're here every day broadcasting. So you have an opportunity to engage with us if you would like. You can also be a guest on one of our shows. But for brick and mortar stores, for other types of businesses, you have email lists. What are you doing with them? You also have access to your customer databases and CRM systems. Like I mentioned, Salesforce. I think Goldmine is another one. I don't know if it's still out there or not. And you have your websites. So all of these things require effort and discipline. And one of the things that I typically notice is when someone shares their website and we're promoting it, at the very bottom of the website, it'll have a copyright and the year. And sometimes it's like, I just saw somebody 2022, and I thought, why are you not managing your website? Why doesn't it say 2026? and your marketing materials reflect the current year. I know when we switched from 2025 to 2026, we have marketing assets that had 2025 on them, and we're in the process of getting them all updated. So we own that content, but someone has to physically go in and change what's in there for the year. So that's something that we can do, and it also adds credibility. Your website is important because if someone who's networking or you're engaging with people, they're going to go and check. They're probably going to run a Google search and they're going to go and check on your website. Now, this is a little off topic, do yourself a service and set up some type of task related thing on Google where Google's doing a check for you. Put your name in there so Google is checking for you. You can also do this on artificial intelligence. Ask it to do a check on you and your business and run that check every day, every week, so that you know if your name or your business is out there in the public domain, what people are seeing, because you don't want people seeing things that you're not seeing. So obviously, I'm a public figure. I'm in the public domain. I am doing that. And of course, we have so many TV shows and then my other business with all my books and master classes. I want to know what's going on. And you want the same thing for you. So just go ahead. It's a simple thing to set up a task, put in your name, put in your business name. Many times, business owners will avoid building and maintaining their own website and email lists because they don't see immediate results. Now, at the same time, we also have people who are interested in collecting this information, and there's no real reason why they're doing it. So if someone says to you, "Oh, I need your email address, I'm putting it in my database," well, what are they using it for? Are they going to be sending out a lot of emails that are something you're not interested in? Now, in full disclosure, I get a lot of emails and I'm on a lot of email lists. Some of them I signed up for and some of them I didn't. Most of them I didn't. But I don't delete myself. I don't unsubscribe, which is a knee-jerk reaction a lot of people do, because in the long game, I want to see what people are doing. I want to see what other people are doing with their business, how they're branding themselves, because maybe I can learn something from that. That's free intel, free information. If you are the person, and again, no judgment, where you're immediately unsubscribing from a newsletter, ask yourself, why are you doing this? It's one more email. All you have to do is look through it and see if there's any information that you can glean from it that you can use to help yourself. So instead of paying someone, you might learn a few things that you got right by being subscribed to these newsletters. Now, if you have your own newsletter and you get a report from HubSpot or any of these other CRMs, do something with that information. If people are unsubscribing, I used to take it personally. And again, I just said I don't send out newsletters anymore, but I would personally take offense, especially if I knew the person. I'd be like, why are they unsubscribing? And then I thought, let them unsubscribe because they're not actually interested in what I'm doing or what we're building. So let's move on to the next person. So just think about how you can use the information so that you can continue to grow the channels that you own. That's really important. The next thing is dependence on algorithms, platforms, or locations. So many online businesses depend on algorithms. For example, we're on a lot of online platforms right now, and they all have their own algorithm. I don't profess to understand it. I have a team of people who do it, but we only do it on certain platforms because for the other platforms I mentioned, Facebook, they take the content down after 30 days. So that to me would be a waste of money. So you may be watching on Facebook right now, but if you want to be able to see all of our programming, I would send you over to our YouTube channels because that's where our programming is listed in playlists, and you can find all the information there, and you can get free education that will help you in your business. YouTube is an incredible tool. And so I'm coming here with what I'm sharing from my own experience about the long game, and hopefully you're taking something solid away from this. Now, if you are a brick and mortar store, local businesses depend on their location, their foot traffic, and also third-party apps. So recently, I felt like I needed a massage. I worked out really hard. I've been wearing a 10-pound weight vest and doing 2 hours in a row of these exercise classes. And so I really needed a massage. But I thought to myself, I don't feel like spending $200 or $300 for a massage. Not that it's not worth it, but I didn't feel like spending it. And I'm getting back to foot traffic. So someone that I trust referred me to this place that does foot therapy. They do massages. And the name itself was something that I was a little uncomfortable with. But when I went there and I saw the location, it was on off of a major highway in a strip shopping center. It wasn't somewhere buried that I thought, oh my gosh, this could work out. It's not to my advantage. I don't need a massage this much. So the point is, where you're located makes a big difference, whether or not, if people don't know you, that they feel comfortable walking into your location. It has to feel welcoming. Another thing is third-party apps. I know people whose business is on an app. Well, what happens if the app goes down? What is your game plan? What happens if the platform is shut down? In these cases, that control is not yours, it's external. So if your entire business is on an app, what will you do if that app goes down? How will you redirect your clients? How will you keep your clients? What happens when it does go down? What is the disaster recovery? Now, I had hired a company to put us on Roku. We were on Roku for about, I want to say, a year and a half. And it came to my attention that the Roku account under the developer name was not under my name. And it wasn't under my business's name. It was under another person's name. So I reached out to this person and I said, you, as part of the contract, we're supposed to put this app, the developer name, in my name. And so what ended up happening was that this guy hijacked my Roku channel, literally hijacked it so that it was taken down. And then I had to pay him money to get it back. And I thought long and hard about it, and I paid the money. And I only did it, I think, because I was relatively new in business and I was kind of in a panic stage, like, oh my gosh, what are people going to think? But the point is, in the long game, I would never do that again. And I'm very particular about where it is that we stream, because if I have no control over it, then I'm literally handing the keys to the business to someone else. So today, we're not on Roku ourselves directly, but we are through a distributor. But if Roku were to go down through the distributor, that is going to have little to no impact on my business. So keep these things in mind. The next thing is misunderstanding of business assets. So we own some things that we can distribute. I talked about these. It could be a customer list. It could be direct communication channels, repeat buyers. These are all assets. But most business owners don't prioritize building these assets. I remember when I worked for one of the major telecommunication companies in my corporate career, the clients that we had versus the new clients, they were worth gold because they were bringing in 80% of the revenue. And so even though we were farming versus hunting, getting new clients, we didn't want to lose the existing clients that we had. It's very important. So you have to make sure that you're reaching out to your clients with a caveat. The caveat is becoming too friendly with your clients. You don't want to become too friendly. You want to be able to have some type of camaraderie, but at the same time, there has to be a boundary because you are running a business. And so what will happen is I have a friend who's a brick and mortar store, and one of their main clients became a really good friend. And then this person decided they were moving for other reasons. And what happened was, they stopped being a client, and the person got completely offended because they lost a lot of their business, and they were looking at it, well, this is a client, now they're a friend. Also remember just to subscribe to our channels. So think about who it is that you have as your high level clients. What is the relationship that you have, and what is the value that you're bringing? What is it that you're going to do over and over again that's going to keep them coming back? And sometimes the question is to ask them, How may I serve you? What is it? What is the value that we can bring with you to you? What are some things that you're working on that we can help you with? It's not about I have this, I can do this, pushing things. It's about pulling the information in a respectful way out of them. Because what I found is people want to feel heard. People want to feel connected. They want to know that you are interested in them. And that doesn't mean you have to know every single thing about them, but it certainly means that you need to show you care. That if what you're offering isn't a good fit for them, walk away. Tell them, you know what, as much as I'd like to help you and assist you, I don't feel that there's a fit where we can bring the value that you deserve, that you're looking for. And then you refer them to someone else. And I promise you, in time, it will come back to you. Many times we're so desperate for money, for business, that we latch onto something that doesn't make sense. Our intuition tells us this doesn't work, but yet we think, oh, I have bills to pay, I have to do this, I have to do that. And in the end, it comes back and it kicks us. So think again about the long game. That's what this show is about. It's not about the short game where you want immediate satisfaction, because if you do want that, maybe having your own business isn't the best idea. Maybe it can be a hobby. You know, there's nothing wrong with having a hobby, but there's certainly a difference between having a hobby and having a successful business. So here's the next part. No direct relationship with customers. If you cannot contact your customers directly without relying on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, or a landlord or a third party, you are not controlling your distribution. So if the only way you can reach someone is through social media, you have to say to yourself, well, is this really a customer? Is it really a client? Is it someone who's going to come back for repeat business? And that's the part that people tend to lose focus of. It's, oh, we've got all this business coming in the door, but yet we've all this business going out of the door because we're not solidifying our relationships with our clients. And again, there's only so much that we can do when we are bringing value. We don't have all the answers, and we're not for everyone, but people make that mistake. People think, and I know this from interviewing people, who's your client? Oh, everyone's my client. No, everyone's not your client. Not everyone is going to want you or what it is that you offer. Not everyone's going to want me or what it is that we offer here at USA Global TV and Radio, or me as a keynote speaker, or me as an author. That's just the way that it is. And you have to accept that, because in the long game, if you don't, you're going to be constantly hurt. You are going to be taking every single thing personally, instead of this is part of the process. This is how you move from point A to point B. It's part of the process. So keep that in mind. The business impact of all these things I've talked about today is revenue becomes inconsistent. Your customer retention is weak or zero. Your marketing costs are going to go up, and your growth it's unpredictable, it's unstable, and your business value is truly limited. You can go from being a partner with someone to just being an order taker, or to being an order taker to being a partner. In many cases, what I see are people who are order takers. If you think about it, a lot of order taking has been taken off the table when it comes to humans. For example, you can go to Amazon and they'll take your order. There's no person you have to deal with. Everything's done online. And so you may have an e-commerce platform where there's no actual involvement between you and the customer. However, you are not Amazon, probably, and I'm not Amazon. So while Amazon is at a completely different level, for most of us who are in business, if we just become order takers, they can easily leave and somebody else can take the order. But what will happen is somebody will bring value. Somebody will step up and say, you know what, it's not about this order or this product or this service. It's the fact that you have a need and I have a solution. and how can we bring it together, and how does it work so that you'll come back over and over and over again. Even when your need changes, we might not have the solution, but you might still come to us and we can say, you know what, that's not something we're doing today. We're working on it, but in the interim, let me introduce you to so and so. In the long game, we have to make referrals. We have to make connections. We have to do introductions. If you are holding on to a client so tightly or a prospect and you're not willing to let them go and network and make new relationships, I promise you, you will lose them. My example here is, without saying any names, before I had my own platform, I was doing a television show on another platform. And I was also doing a radio show. And it was the same title, two different shows. And so I was cross promoting both, which was my choice because I was paying for both. When you have a TV show or a radio show, you're probably paying for it. And what happened was the owner of the TV show said that I couldn't do it anymore, that I had to pick his platform or the radio platform. So you know what I said? I choose not to be told what to do. You cannot handcuff me and tell me that I can't have both, because I'm actually promoting what you're doing and I'm paying you. So what I did was I left and I started my own platform. The radio station went out of business, but I started my own platform and I stand before you today on our 5th year. So I made a decision that at the time felt uncomfortable, but at the same time, that's what I instill on my team. I want my team to go out and network, be on as many platforms as they can, make connections, do what they need to do. Because if you're not doing that, you're only self-centered, you're self-absorbed. And who wants to be with someone who is all in their ego? I believe that as business owners, when we have a kind heart, when we show up with grace, when we want to live a life of peace, that other people feel that. And so I want that for everyone on our team. I want that for you. And where that journey takes you, I don't know, but I'm not in control of it. So all I can do is encourage you to listen to your intuition. So as a business owner, I hope I've given you some nuggets that you can actually use when you think about whether you have a business or you're going to start a business, maybe you're in corporate and you want to leave. Think about the long game. How long are you in this? And then, of course, another whole topic, which we'll do on a different show, is an exit strategy. If and when you're ready to get out, you want to retire, you want to sell your business, you want to wind down, we'll talk about that in the future. But we've got to be able to see the big picture, knowing we can't predict pandemics, we can't predict wars, we can't predict stock market, real estate, whatever it might be. We have to be able to provide value. And even in the worst of times, and of course, I have another example, people will still do business with people they believe in. My father was a new car dealer with my uncle, and I was in sales at the time, and then I became a finance manager. But those of us who are in sales, we would be asked, why aren't there more customers coming in? You know what, Dad? It's raining today. You know what, Dad? It's snowing today. You know what, Dad? The sun is out today. Like, who's going to come and buy a car? And my father would say, all those things are just excuses. They're excuses because you don't want to pick up the phone and call people and tell them what the value is that you have waiting for them. So we can make excuses all the time. They're not coming in because of the economy. They're not listen, if someone's sick, that's a different story. If someone's living on the street, that's a different story. But for most people, they will still make buying decisions. It might not be as many, and it might not be to the actual amount they were making before, but they will still be making buying decisions. And whether or not they align with you will depend on how do you make them feel. How do they feel when they think about the relationship? And even if it is transactional, okay, even if you are not on the front lines of the business, your people are. And if it is something that's e-commerce based, what does the follow-up feel like? Also, what does it look or feel like when the person receives the product or the service? Are you and your people going the extra mile? Are you doing ongoing training to teach people how to show up with compassion and empathy, especially if you have a call center? People are typically calling into a call center to complain. Not everyone can take complaints day in and day out, but you can train the right people, because not everyone can do this. You can train the right people to take a complaint and convert it into a sale, convert it into happiness, any way you want to look at it. But you have to invest the time and energy in your business to do it. And that, my friends, is the long game. If you haven't done so, please do so right now and go over to our YouTube channels, USA Global TV and Radio and Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and subscribe. If you would like to be part of our program as a guest, you can go to our website, usaglobaltv.com. You can also have your own show. We are interviewing people for their own show. Whether you have experience or not, we will train you. And you can take a look at this video clip that will give you more information. In the meantime, stay tuned for our next show. We've got over 60 shows in total in all of our playlists. So we're hoping that we have something for everyone. But we'd love to hear from you if you'd like to do a show too. Thank you for listening, and thank you for being here. Bye for now.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USAGlobalTV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.